So, welcome to day 2 of my podcast journal, web journal. Well, I'll figure it out. Welcome to day 2 of my Lenten study on expressions of who I am, of my faith. Today is episode 2, and today I'm going to talk about my works. Specifically, I want to talk about my church and also an organization that I work with through my church called the Religious Coalition for a Nonviolent Durham. To tell you a little bit about Religious Coalition, I have to tell you about my church. So about 5 years ago, my mom talked to my husband a lot about kind of finding a church family and settling down. And, we were at a place where it felt like it was time, but we just, we're a gay couple. And also we're an interracial couple. So that makes it that much more complicated in a society where everything has to kind of fit into boxes. Interracial gay couple and church just didn't seem like it was going to be a good fit, even in a place like Durham. But one Saturday afternoon, a friend of ours called, and she's a daughter who's trans, very young and trans. And there was a group here that was doing a fundraiser, and they were actually doing a fundraising drag show. And she wanted to go. Her trans daughter wanted to go. She didn't feel comfortable going by herself, so she asked us to go. And we did. What we didn't know is that we were going to a fundraising drag show at a church. And that church was the church that we attend now. That Saturday night was our first introduction into Elizabeth Street United Methodist Church, and my husband and I have been going ever since. That blew my mind, that a church would think outside the box in such a way. But then I got to know the people, and it just made sense. They seem to match up with almost kind of the joy and the fervor and the energy that I would think would be associated with following someone as magnificent as Jesus Christ, but without the hang-ups that I'd found in so many other people. And truth be told, there are people in my church that have hang-ups. I'm sure I have hang-ups, and that's just part of church being church, because church is run by man. But what this church was getting right, in my opinion, was it was making a space for everybody. Then I got involved in the church, and it turned out they were working with organizations that also made space for everybody. So let me tell you about the Religious Coalition for a Nonviolent Durham. They are based here in Durham. They do work on the ground for violence prevention, for intervention, prayer vigils, reentry programs to help people who are coming out of prison to kind of reacclimate into civilian life. There's nothing like having a conversation with someone who served 22 years in prison and gets released and has to go to the grocery store for the first time, or figure out checking, or figure out transportation, or how to get a license. They offer all of these things. With regard to violence, they offer up so many different programs for families of violence. My husband and my church and many people that I know have taken part in an annual vigil where we call out the names of every person who was killed by gun violence in the Durham area every year. And it's interesting that all of this good work that Religious Coalition for Nonviolent Durham does happens in an education building owned by my church. But I wasn't doing anything to help out. Then there was a lady in my church, beautiful lady who I love very dearly. Her name is Miss Evelyn Knight. And Miss Evelyn Knight told us one day about a prayer vigil for a victim. And it was in a part of Durham that, at that point, I was 49 years old. I wouldn't have gone there in the daytime, much less at night. But This 85-year-old woman was telling us about how she would go to these places where people were killed. And she would stand with a group of people and they would pray for the victim. And they would pray for the family. And they would pray for the perpetrator. And they would pray for the city. And they would pray for the healing. And I thought, this 80, maybe not 85 at the time, but 80-ish year old woman is showing me up. But yet, there's nothing about me that can't do something about that. And so I did. I got involved. And I go to parts of my city that other people don't even want to pretend exist. But they're human beings. These people are human beings. We work with a gentleman who served 22 years. We work with another gentleman who I think served either 7 or 11. They're getting out and they're finding jobs and they're trying their best to get back into society. And boy, does society make it hard. And then you have these people who are victims of gun violence. And in Durham, it's getting younger and younger and younger. But yet, when you talk to the city about doing something about it, their whole thing is how do we bring in more business? How do we try to pretend that these parts of Durham don't exist so that we can just live in our Shangri-La? That's just not how life works. And so I had to be about my faith, and I had to step up, and I had to remember this section of the Bible that says that faith without works is dead. I'm not good with the scriptures, so I'm probably getting it wrong, but the idea that I can say I have faith, but if I don't have the works, I don't have anything. And so I just started doing something. I joined the same faith team that Miss Evelyn was on. And that was 3 years ago, something like that, 3 years ago. I now serve on the board of directors for Religious Coalition for Nonviolent Durham because I believe in what they're doing. And I believe that any place can be better if the people there just choose to see the humanity in everybody and not just a select few. She taught me to see humanity in everybody. And me as a gay man who feels like I'm looked over all the time or, discounted because I'm not straight, I had to check myself because I was doing the same thing to people on the margins. And I wonder how many people take time to think, how do you treat people on margins that you want to pretend aren't there? How do you lift a finger to help someone who has a need? How do you take on responsibility in a world that seems hell-bent on individuality, where helping hand is like a bad word nowadays? I just believe that Miss Evelyn was teaching me something. She was teaching me how to be a better Christian. And I'm thankful to God that I paid attention. I'm thankful to God that I watched her do the work, and I thought, I can do that. I watched a church stand for the marginalized people through food distribution, through monthly community meals where we just invite the neighborhood to come and eat just because. That's what we do to be about the work of our faith. That's what I do to be about the work of my faith. I hope that as you get to know me, you'll see more of that resolve in these moments, these 10-minute interludes that I'm sharing. But if nothing else, I hope maybe you're inspired to do something that you wouldn't have otherwise done. And I hope that's something that you can take away and enjoy. Go in peace.